if I'm inspired, my camera's locked on mid lane, and I'm just thinking like, yo, where's Jensen's ward? When's his next trinket coming up?
Gotta gank this vegan. Hello and welcome to The Dive, driven by Kia, Season 8, Episode 19.
A lot of episodes.
It is a lot of episodes, and...
So this is Meteos' 19th episode?
I think the math checks out.
That's kind of crazy, no? That's fast.
Do we count our, 10 minutes of a half episode that we tried to do at MSI where I called you at... What was it, 4 a.m. here? And
Episode 20!
Something like that.
And we got 10 minutes in, and then the hotel internet of our setup that me and Dracos were doing in China trying to call Will just exploded, and me and Dracos kept talking for 5 more minutes, and we're like, wow, everyone else is really quiet. What's going on?
Yeah, that was something.
Sorry, we're not counting that one. Okay, so this is...
We're not? Okay.
This is his 19th episode.
Okay.
That one doesn't count. Then this way we don't have to pay him for that episode.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Nice. Save some money, yeah.
I really put my all into that one. Shame.
Well, a big number 20 coming up next week then for Meteos. Yeah. The vibes are good at the dive. The vibes are also really good at dig and around the LCS. A lot of people actually really liked the kind of LCS face-off setup this week. And I think a big reason was people were really enjoying the interviews with all the players. It was kind of like old school esports vibes where it's just everyone's in on the interview. They're chatting, they're roasting each other, they're making fun of stuff, they're joking around. And
the whole staff was standing behind laughing.
Yeah.
At each of the players' jokes. It was really good.
If you have not seen the Dignitas interview in particular, Jat tweeted it out. It's really funny. I think maybe the LCS account tweeted it out as well, but you can find it out there. And I thought that Zven was going for a freak season joke for sure. When he's like, "What season? Do you know what season it is, Jat?" And Jat's like, "Season 13, season 14, whatever." And he's like, "Dig season."
Yeah, I saw that one coming just because Zven always does these social promotions basically before it was support king or whatever when he was support player and stuff, and he keeps them going. So they've been pushing the dig season one, and I definitely like it. Zven is just such a good all around entertainer.
Yeah.
So
he's so funny.
Yeah, that was a really good setup. And by the way, we're recording this dive on the Monday after the weekend of games because this week, Thursday, Friday are going to be the next week of games. So we're recording Monday. The dive is still going to come out on Wednesday, I believe, same day for the patch. But we're also going to be talking about the patch that is not quite yet live and that the LCS is not going to play on next week, but... it's not going to be on the new patch. Yeah, and I actually asked about this. I was like, "What the hell, Mark? You promised me live patch."
The teams didn't want to.
Mark always lies.
Yeah,
He's
but
the
the teams didn't want to, even though they can play on the patch ahead of time when
on the
updated tournament realm.
That's what we did for them.
I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, understandable. It comes out on Wednesday. The games are literally on Thursday, so I get it. It feels a little bit too tight, but yeah, they could practice on TR. But hopefully, we can push them for future if we have to do this.
Yeah, we gotta stick to our brand. Zven is sticking to his dig season brand. We gotta stick to our live patch brand, no matter the circumstances.
It's really funny, that you're saying that you're kind of expecting it from Zven, because when I was talking to Licorice, it sounded like he wasn't even expecting it, because Licorice was obviously on LCS, and he was saying that they saw Freak around this. I don't know. They were here for whatever they were here for, content or something, and they were walking, and they said they yelled to Freak, "Hey Freak, what season is it?" And Freak yelled back, "Freak season." So I was like, that's actually fantastic that he was in on it too, and he was down to joke around about it. So I thought it was going to be a Freak season thing, and since Jat looked like a little bit deer in the headlights when they asked him what season it was, I thought they were setting him up for a punchline,
Yeah.
But no, it was dig season.
I thought he was deer in the headlights because he was like, "Wait, is it 14?" It's 14, right?
I don't know. I would have probably said season 2024. I know the year. I don't remember what number it is anymore.
See, that's the
Just
thing, though.
-10.
It is, yeah, exactly. It is
that's
the year -10. So it's always easy. As long as you remember what year it is.
I didn't even know that.
Now you're foolproof for future.
As long as I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you never know, Impact also this weekend passed Bjergsen for the most wins all time in the LCS. That is crazy to think about this guy. Obviously, his career has been in the LCS, but before he even came here, he won a world championship, in the LCK. So it's pretty insane. He rightfully won when we did our kind of like historical top 10. He was number 1 for top laners. I do think he's the best top laner in the LCS all time. He's done the most, and now he is the all-time wins leader for any position, which is pretty historic.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite one was earlier this year when they were talking about how Team Liquid hadn't won the championship since they had Doublelift, and then Impact was giving this interview, and he's like, they also haven't won since they had me. I was like, yeah, why is no one talking about this? Because Impact is actually the GOAT. So that all credit to Impact. He's been so consistent the whole time too, which is one of the most impressive parts.
Yeah, I mean he's had a couple splits that didn't go so hot, like FlyQuest last year. I think
that was a rough team.
But even individually, he's
he's never
like, this jungle sucks, the mid laner's trash, the bot lane, what are they doing? Impact's pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's my GOAT for sure.
Yeah. Your top lane GOAT or your LCS GOAT?
Ooh, I don't think he can be LCS GOAT. I think it has to be Doublelift.
Yeah,
so.
I kind of have to.
I mean, top lane. I don't know. I mean, he's one of the GOATs for sure. He's been playing for so long at such a high level, and he's stayed out of drama. Like there hasn't been any like crazy impact.
He's kept it all quiet.
Yeah, I mean he's done a really good job hiding it. It's impressive.
You cross Impact, you're gonna be sleeping with the fishes. So I mean, do you think that is it titles for you? I don't know how you feel about titles, because some people are like, nah, you can't be the GOAT unless you have the most titles. You can't be the GOAT unless you have the most MVPs. You can't, is it that for you, or is it more the way in which Doublelift won and his level of dominance? Because Impact now is tied second all time in LCS titles with Bjergsen and Xmithie. Those 3 all have 6. Only person above him is Doublelift at 8. Team Liquid is looking good. They could win this split, he could win next split, then all of a sudden he's tied with Doublelift. Is he in the conversation then, or is it more to you about the way in which you have to do it?
I don't know if I have any definitive metric for it. I think for me it's more of like a feel thing,
The vibes.
Yeah, it is vibes. And I mean, one thing is that for Impact and Bjergsen as well is that they're not originally from North America. So I feel like for me, that's a little bit more credit to Doublelift, because he was just born and raised here. He came up through North American solo queue, right?
I had to live with Travis Gafford.
I mean that is
it's rough.
That is maybe the hardest trial he's gone through for sure. But I think that part definitely for me adds a lot to Doublelift, because he's from here, right? It's these are his roots. But I mean, I think if Impact keeps it up, he could be in the running for it down the line, absolutely. And I think also you look at the situations these players are in, right? When you can just keep doing it on different teams, because if somebody is just they're just constantly surrounded with the best players all the time, then to me I'm I mean, yeah, they're good, but it's not the same thing as as soon as you leave a team, that team is way worse, and the team you join is way better. Because just for me, I'm that's pretty hard to deny that.
Do you feel like that's a knock on Bjergsen then, since he was basically all as successful with TSM?
I mean, I'm not really knocking on Bjergsen, because you could say the similar thing for Sneaky, right? He was on C9 the entire time. Yep. They're both good players. It's just you haven't seen them in that same situation of going into an entirely new team.
Everywhere he goes wins.
Yeah, and then seeing their former teams without him kind of thing. So I think it's less knocking on the people who've done that and more
credit.
Just credit to
I mean, for me, a lot of it is also social impact and like the way that they did it and how they had dominance. Because doublelift is by far the most famous across the world North American player. He has so many fans all throughout China and Korea still to this day because of how big he was at the peak of North American League of Legends. You know, him going to All-Stars and smashing it there, and all of these big plays and big moments that people remember and associate with him. Like the fandom is just it's not really comparable, you know. So I feel like that is a really big factor for me as well. You know, especially because it was like that truly was like we had so much reach as far as you know, general social influence, just League of Legends being at its peak and all these huge moments, and the story of him, you know, going from CLG and not winning for so long and then finally winning and beating TSM, then going to TSM. It was like he like is the story of LCS for so long.
That is a really good point. Absolutely. Just I didn't think about it when I was giving my reasoning, but I totally agree. With Impact, he's more of one of those head down, just gonna put in the work and let his results speak for itself. Because, you know, he's never really been big on the streaming scene or giving super spicy interviews or whatnot. Meanwhile, Doublelift, you know, he's been one of the most not controversial, but like polarizing players, I guess. You know, you love him or hate him. Not many people are just like, oh yeah, you know, he's there.
Yeah, you know,
it's interesting though, because I don't think that like your like how big you are in socials and stuff should factor into greatest of all time player, right?
But it's the reasons why he was so big in socials.
Okay, yeah, I can agree with that, but like the way that you phrased it made it sound like, oh, because his social pull is so big, you know, like that's a.
I mean, nobody's gonna have a big social pull without it there being reasons why.
Well, but you can just be really entertaining. Like you can be hilarious, right, and have like a massive social following because you're a really funny streamer and stuff.
I would give points for that, honestly.
Like, I mean, Cutie Pie had a really big following at his peak in streaming. He was massive, right?
Yeah.
And but like that to me is not an argument for him to be in the discussion or above a player like Impact. Like his social pull and his streaming was way bigger. So to me, that just doesn't matter at all. And as far as
not at all.
Zero. If we're talking greatest of all time player, I could not care less if you have 0 followers on Twitter. If you came in and you just beat everyone's ass, you're the most dominant player ever, you're the greatest. I don't think the rest of the stuff matters. I still think Doublelift is the greatest, to be clear. I was posing the Impact question just because it's an interesting conversation. I think Doublelift is the greatest because the recipe for winning the LCS for like 7 years felt like whichever team has Doublelift wins the LCS, right? Okay, he wins on CLG, goes to TSM, they win. Oh, he goes to TL, they win 4 in a row. Goes back to TSM, they're gonna win. You know, it's like he had that level of dominance and he had that ability to just make teams successful. And teams also, for a lot of those wins, their entire strategy was built around you get to the late game, you give Doublelift all the resources, and he wins in a 5v5, right? So it's like there are so many reasons that he is the greatest, but to me, the social impact, the social following just doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think that's too much separating. Like if you're just looking at the end metrics and you're like talking about Twitter followers and stuff like that, then that like completely separates it from what you have to do to get that. Like, you know, all the fans are like reminiscing and talking about the golden days of LCS and the biggest reasons why they love the league and the sport at the time. And it is when the players have big stories and personalities combined with gameplay. You know, it's hard to really, I feel like, distill these different individual factors down. And so I think it does have an impact. I would say, like, if you're just looking at the metrics of Twitter followers, then yeah, I don't care how many, you know, Twitter followers you have. But I think social impact is a broader term than
yeah.
that.
I guess I see that as like it's just a different discussion, right? It's like you're most iconic or most famous or most impactful. Like I think that's different than greatest of all time.
Greatest, I feel like greatest encapsulates a little bit of that though, because it's, you know, why do I care about LCS in general? You know, what is making people watch? And I feel like if there's a player, I mean, Faker, he's his own thing. Like, no one's really comparable. But I feel like if Faker stopped playing, LCK would get way less viewers, right?
It would, yeah.
For that same reason. It's like...
Same thing when Uzi retired in LPL. The viewership went down a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think any player with that kind of just gravity around them that just makes people interested in what they're doing, it kind of transcends any kind of like stats or metrics you can have. Because
they're huge for the game, huge for the sport. Definitely not denying that. I guess it would just be agree to disagree on, like, for me, that it's just a different discussion than greatest of all time player.
Yeah, I mean
it is interesting. And impact of these three players that we're talking about, we're talking about Bjergsen, we're talking about Doublelift. Those are the two that everyone talks for GOAT discussion. If impact keeps going long enough, eventually he's going to get himself in the conversation.
Eventually, yeah.
Right? Because it doesn't feel like he's falling off at all, right? Like, he's still playing at a really high level. He's still picking up titles. He's still, performing well internationally. So I think that's something that is kind of really interesting, is it's like, if Impact is still going 10 more years and all of a sudden he's got 15 titles and stuff.
Another part of that could also be just the roles that they play, right? Because top lane, especially Impact being the team player top laner.
He's the weak side GOAT.
Yeah, he's playing Ornn, he's playing Sion, he's playing Zac Top going down 5 levels from a failed lane swap. It's hard to look like the GOAT in those situations, right?
Yeah.
But top lane as a role is like, goes really far the other side of the spectrum too, where you have the shy and you're just an absolute like 1v4 maniac, and
so much of that though is team oriented, because your team has to play a certain way to enable a top laner to play like that, right? Anytime your top laner is playing Jace or whatnot, you can't play the game the same way as if your top laner is playing Ornn. You can't just be like, yo, yeah, Jace, you're just gonna have to back off this triple stacked wave crashing into your turret. I gotta go bot lane. Like, see ya. So I think both valid, but I'm definitely more of the side of trying to appreciate the players that make space for the rest of the team, the ones that like bring more burden on themselves to make others look good, rather than just like, oh my god, the Jinx pentakill when he's like 4,000 more gold than anyone else in the game. Because like, yeah, dude, that's just what happens. That's how the game works.
It is really interesting though, and maybe we'll go too far down the rabbit hole and we'll stop at some point, but it brings us into a different discussion where it's like, are people overvaluing or putting too much emphasis on some of these different flashier parts of the game, right? Is it more skilled to, or more important to get the 50 CS lead on the Jace and more impactful for the game, or is it more important to be able to play the weak side perfectly and absorb the pressure and never die and enable your team and do those other things, right?
On meta.
Exactly, it does, and it's just interesting because we all naturally, I think, will gravitate more towards when you're asked like, what is the greatest play of all time, or what is the most exciting play, or your favorite moment, it's always going to be one of those flashy moments. People will say Doublelift in the mid lane against C9, or people will say it's this pentakill, or it's the Danny moment at Baron, or it's it's these kinds of things that really stick in your mind. Like, almost no one is ever going to be like, damn, how Impact played out that lane swap, back 6 years ago when he soaked all that XP in the brush for 2 minutes hiding there, and then he it's like it's just interesting, right? Because those are the moments that really stand out. So those are the moments that really do get a lot of kind of praise and value, and maybe some of the more quiet things that Impact does that makes him a champion don't get as much. Notice.
That kind of reminds me of one game I had. Like, I don't think back on my old games too much, but one of the games where I was like most happy about my performance was on Optic, a game where I was playing Trundle and just I was in some really cringe matchup where I was getting invaded all over the place, and I like had to just concede a bunch of camps. But then I was finding some good gank opportunities. Like I saw where they had vision. I found where I could pressure a lane where they didn't expect me to be there, which is kind of hard as jungle, especially when you're getting invaded, to think about what info they have and then how you can like trick them. And so after that game, I remember feeling really good about it. I was like, wow, like I don't think many people could have had the amount of pressure with the limited resources and like the terrible situation that I was in. So like I felt really good about the game. But it's one of them, if you're watching, it's like, wow, this guy's just getting out jungled and owned, and then like the other team threw to his gank, and it's like, well, I mean, I see how it looks like that, but that's not really what's happening.
Especially if you're not a jungler, then you're not used to having so many options taken away from you and like obstacles to have to overcome. But like those types of games are the reason I came in jungler in the first place. You know, the information game and trying to work around that. I was originally, as soon as he brought it up, though, going to be like, wow, I don't remember a single Optic game, or I don't think about any Optic
I don't think anyone did.
Kobe's like, you're right. I don't remember that at all.
I almost broke out laughing. I was like, all right, finish the story. It's a good story.
Yeah. It's sorry, go ahead. No, I mean, it's cool, right? It's one of those things where, and a lot of times when you talk to players, their like best game ever in their mind is definitely not what the pro, like, or rather the community would think is their best game ever, right? Because it's something like that where you understand the situation, you understand how difficult that is. It was always funny in WoW because the games that I would get the most praise for is just when you were really high on the damage meters. You'd be like, oh my god, he did so much damage, and maybe not the game where it was like a super hard matchup and it was very difficult to like kite and live and things like that, right?
You're so like AoEing pets and stuff or something.
Exactly. It's just like
it's
or the matchup's really easy and it doesn't really matter, right? So it's just interesting talking about that stuff and people's perception of what makes the greatest player versus maybe what some of the players themselves think. Either way, Impact has been incredible. Also, some other history that wasn't in the doc here, but I remembered. TL actually is now the organization, including the wins with Curse, that has the most wins all time in the LCS. So that was a little bit of a shocker to me. I thought it would have been Cloud9 for sure. But TL obviously has had a lot of really good years. They've been around for a long time. And with TSM leaving the league, they were the team that had the most wins at the time of their exit. Then Cloud9 passed them, and now TL has passed Cloud9 because TL has been doing better in the last little while.
And just like a little caveat, because I know we've been talking about a lot of these discussions where people do get like super passionate about, you know, greatest of all time, or, you know, titles counting between Curse/TL.
Yeah.
The Curse/TL one, there's a lot of these situations where like a team has been bought or something like that, or, you know, the slot changed or something. But for that one, I'm like, for sure they get credit for all the Curse stuff because it was Steve. Steve was there on Curse, like, you know, from the ground up, like, has been there the entire time, made the whole thing. So I think that, you know, all of the records should include the early Curse days for sure.
Yeah.
Dude, Steve started out as a player. He was a support player way back when.
Liquid 112.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it was most games played, excuse me, not most wins. So they're at 800. They reached 800 games played, and I'm not sure if that was the end of the series or mid-series, but anyway, they're over 800 now, which is pretty crazy. So definitely a big congrats to them. The games, as we already
wait a second, doesn't TSM still have the
most wins? Maybe they do.
Yeah,
maybe they do. I'm not sure.
Because I remember I also saw the Cloud9 social media coordinator Porty, and he was like, yeah, Jack's goal, get more championships than TSM still. And I was like, oh, I like that. It's good. It's a good goal. And you are kind of uncontested now. TSM's not going to get any more.
I'm fighting back.
Yeah. So good luck with that one.
They're over there in the LPL with that spot that's coming soon.
Hello?
Bro, why are you parking?
Seriously? What is that?
Remote smart parking assist. You could have parked anywhere.
They could have parked there. They could have parked there. They could have parked there.
All right, we got the games coming up on Thursday and Friday this week. It should be a fun one. The matchups this week are going to be on Thursday. Immortals playing NRG, and then 100 Thieves plays TL. And then on Friday, we got Shopify, Cloud9, and Dignitas FlyQuest. Do you want to start with the Dig Fly matchup? Because that is kind of the big banger matchup that's coming up this week.
So do you want to move patch to last?
True.
Then?
Do you want to talk patch
or do we want to jump into
patch
the
right now?
Patcheroni? Because honestly, it would be okay to
if you're feeling Kobe, I'll follow.
It would be okay to move the patch because
I think we can do patch last because they're not actually playing on it.
Yeah, because we did say already that we aren't actually playing on the new patch since it's coming out one day before LCS. That's why the players opted for playing on the current one. So we can go into the games and hype up the upcoming matchups here real quick. Like you said, let's just start at the beginning of the day. Honestly, let's start at the first matchup.
Okay, so you don't want to start with the Dig Fly?
That's a juicy one.
It is a juicy
Save that one for later. You know, you keep people with something to look forward to.
Okay.
You gotta eat your vegetables
first.
first.
Matchup is Immortals Energy, so we're eating our vegetables.
Okay.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
These vegetables might not even be cooked.
Yeah.
You know,
Energy
energy got to win.
It's like some
This
boiled
last week.
carrots, you know, and they didn't
Energy
even put
gotta
salt
win.
on them or anything. Got to eat those.
Oh God. Yeah, they've been left in the stew actually too long. Boiled the hell out of them. Yeah, this you guys are making fun of me for jumping off the energy train really early.
Yeah.
You did.
Well, I was
Do
just more laughing at the situation.
Yeah.
I was never on the energy train, so as someone who never got on, I could laugh at anyone I want.
and now are you guys like, oh, that was probably a good decision to get off the train early, or does anyone feel like there's gonna be?
I was thinking
bounce
I
back?
put them too high and I had them 6th. So
I mean, I think it'd be more a question of why were you ever on the train?
yeah,
Because, I don't know. I mean, last
that train was
split,
clearly made out of cardboard. Like there was holes in the wall.
I think they definitely have something to prove coming into this split in general. Because last split, they looked shaky. This split, they still look shaky. It feels like they don't really have a solid identity. Palafox has been struggling a lot compared to what we saw last year. So I don't know. They're not looking competitive.
Yeah, I mean this matchup though versus Immortals, I feel like there is a shot. Honestly, after the first week, I was like, wow, Immortals absolutely just dogged on Shopify, and I was gonna think, hey, we're gonna get Scrim Immortals on stage, summer 2024. This is gonna be it. We're finally gonna see what all the teams are talking about. But then they had a bit of a rough one as well.
Yeah, you ban Skarner and you get the Lee Sin top.
Yeah,
That was crazy, by the way.
Lee Sin top patch preview. Lee Sin's getting a little buff, so maybe they saw that game and they're like, you know what, we'll give him a little buff.
I was actually really excited when the Lee Sin top came out because I was like, they gotta cook something up because it was like 5th pick too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was
More
last
boiled
pick.
carrots.
Yeah, it was.
That's what that Lee Sin
It was
was.
5th pick. I was like, okay, like maybe it's a great lane counter, and then he's getting his ass beat in lane. I was like, okay, maybe it's gonna be good for the team fights. I don't know. I was trying to think through like why would he be picking this? Maybe he's gonna try to like kick the Karthus out of the fights and keep him away or something. I don't know. I was just trying to think like why is he going for this? But it's. I mean, the Lee Sin did nothing, but also no one did anything in that game. So I don't really think the top lane pick mattered at all.
But, I mean, if you're gonna 5th pick,
I agree, it was a bad
and you're
pick.
it's into Gnar too. It's not like Gnar is some crazy, uncounterable champion.
Yeah.
I was more just talking on Immortal 1 week 1 against Shopify, which is probably looking like the weakest team in the league right now. And they had Skarner for both their wins.
games, yeah.
So I don't know. That's why it always takes more than like 1 week, one series, whatever, to truly understand how good a team is, because sometimes you just win because of you had a better early meta read than other people.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely tough. Like couldn't really get anything going against Cloud9. I mean, I think this is going to be a really interesting test. I was kind of joking about like the lowering energy in the rankings. I still think probably they are appropriate at 6 because I think they will end up being better than both Immortals and Shopify. But this is a chance for Immortals to maybe kind of make some ground in the standings, take down a team that I think a lot of people are going to have kind of similarly around them in the rankings. I don't know. I mean, it was just a really tough series. I thought that Armeo had a really bad series. He played Maokai both games against C9. It didn't feel like he could get anything done. The Maokai ultimates felt like they were kind of just getting thrown out there willy-nilly and not really getting anything done. But the whole team just looks like they didn't really have much direction against Cloud9. Like Cloud9 was kind of just running them around the map. There was like that lone bright spot, I think in game 2, if I recall, where Thanatos dove like way too deep. Chasing Tactical over by the enemy blue buff, and he flash sliced on him and stunned him, and he still had cleanse, and he just like cleansed on Zyra and then backed up, and then like a couple Cloud9 members died there, trying to bail him out. But that was really like the only thing that kind of was that like lone bright spot in that series for Immortals, where it felt like, okay, maybe there's a chance here, because it seemed like they were just all eggs in the Tactical basket, and he couldn't really get too much going.
Yeah, I think Tactical is the hope probably here for Immortals. Yeah, I mean, it makes this particular matchup, since we're looking at it, looking forward to next week, I feel like a competitive one
Yeah.
because both of these teams have been struggling. Immortals struggled super hard versus Cloud9, I thought, especially in the draft too. And it's funny where Inero was even making fun of himself, and they were tweeting out like, the first time around for Shopify it was so easy. You just first picked the Skarner, genius, smashed him, won that draft. But this time around, the Lee Sin and a couple of the answers here definitely looks very rough. But that doesn't excuse the gameplay. We know.
Yeah.
For this series, this was not like a draft series.
No, I mean, they got completely outplayed across the board. It felt like they were losing every lane. They got out macro. They got, out everything. So I do think, Immortals are going to have a much easier kind of time against Energy. Cloud9, I think pretty much everyone has in like top 3, and Energy is kind of one of those bottom 3 teams. So this I think will be more of a true test for Immortals and to see, have they actually kind of improved from spring? Are they going to be able to be competitive against more like middle of the pack type teams?
I will say that particularly the bottom lane, I think Energy's bottom lane, they had the one game where Contracts got counter jungled and then he was just like left with no options, so he just stayed bottom until they finally got a first blood. And then he got the kill onto Varus afterwards too, who was trying to go for the wave and who he stuck around, and then they kind of like snowballed that one. But aside from that game, the bottom lane has been, I feel like, pretty rough. FBI's positioning in a lot of team fights, agnostic of how they perform in the lane phase, was kind of rough. And so if you put that up against Immortals, then I feel like Tactical and Ole is probably the part of Immortals that I would put the most faith in, probably the strongest point.
Absolutely.
So it might actually be a good matchup for Immortals. On the side for Energy, though, one of the things that in the middle of the series, game number 2, where I actually was quite hyped, was like that Zyra game, the Baron rushes that they did with Zyra, like recognizing how quickly they can rush down Baron, and they had multiple good Baron burns, which is drastically different from the first week where the Barons were car crashes for Energy every single time. It was absolutely horrendous. They looked like they went in to most Barons with no game plan and were really confused there. So I at least liked some of these ones where they did have a lot better, at least game plan going into them, and like what they were going to do, take this objective, and how they can actually turn that into a victory.
Dude, I've been surprised. You mentioned Zyra, and she's actually had so much success in LCS so far as jungle. I've been kind of on a Zyra grind myself in solo queue. It's really fun.
I saw
to
your
play.
stream.
yeah. She's a lot of fun. Definitely kind of cheesy, like just insane clear speed, and just like really unfair poke. But it's just surprising to see her working out so well in LCS so far. I'm curious how that's going to develop, because like I don't know, maybe there's some good picks into her. Mostly it's been Zyra into Karthus so far, who's not really that good at punishing her. Contracts pulled out the Diana, which kind of looked good early.
Oh man, I felt so bad when he was whiffing the ults though.
Oh,
because
anyone rooting for them would feel bad.
Yeah, it did. It
Dude,
did look good
in
early.
his defense, I feel like anyone who plays Diana has this happen, because what happens is like you're trying to E then R, and like you try to buffer it, but like it doesn't buffer. The R just goes off when you press it. So if they're barely out of range to the E, it won't wait till you E them. It'll just R, and that is just like, it's so tilting when that happens.
But it's also like I've played a fair bit of Diana. It's also one of those things that it just feels like when you've played a bit of Diana, you know that, and then there's no reason that you can't just wait.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
I mean, it's not a good thing to do for sure.
Yeah. It's
a
what I
mistake.
mean. It's like. I just feel like it's one of those things that like at the pro level, it's not a mistake that you want to be seeing, right?
Yeah.
I get how it can happen and stuff. I'm not saying I haven't done it. I'm sure everyone has done it who's played Diana, but it definitely feels rough to see on the LCS stage. And the thing for Energy to me that is the most confusing, I guess, is it's like, I get clearly there's some team issues going on. I get that there's obviously like going to be disagreements on how they're playing out the game and things that are going on behind the scenes that are making them not have the results. But the thing that has left me kind of scratching my head is just that individually, the players seem to have gotten way worse mechanically. And that's the part that's just kind of weird, right? Like, I get being like, we don't agree on how to play the game, so we're, doing disjointed things, and you're trying to invade, and I'm trying to play passive, and you're trying to engage, and I'm trying to back off, whatever. But like, Palafox and Contracts both just seem to have gotten way worse individually, mechanics wise, and Palafox was having some really rough times in some of these games. And even thinking back to spring last year, where their team wasn't even good, individually, he still always looked kind of like he was the hope, right? He was the threat for them to win, and he was going to be able to make things happen. And so it's just been so weird for me to see how much of a step back it felt like he has taken, and even Contracts compared to him at Worlds. This guy was going crazy at Worlds, right? So just individually seeing how much of a step back these players have taken has been the thing that has kind of confused me the most, or maybe shaking my confidence in them the most. Is just, I don't know what's causing that.
I think if I'm Energy, I'm praying to Freak for some meta shifts, because I think this current meta is actually, it doesn't align with how they did well as a team. I feel like for them, they want a meta where Dokla can play carries. They want Contracts to be able to play one of these like early game ganking junglers. Like, they had so much success on Poppy, Rel, but she's not a jungler anymore. But, some of these early game focused champs. But as it stands right now, the meta is like, these scaling team comps where your jungler, and Inspired said it in the interview where, people talk about like carry junglers and whatnot, but at some point you're just farming, right? Like, you're not necessarily carrying the game. You're just farming super fast and doing that the whole time. So you don't always have as much agency just because you have more resources in those games.
Especially if you're like Karthus or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Zyra to some extent too. She's not like the crazy like mind games, vision games, ganking style champ. You're just like doing figure eights in your jungle, clearing all the camps.
And then you're a big influence in team fights later after you've done your farming duties.
I'm curious, what is your take then on the style that we're seeing from Umti, right? Because he's just spamming Maokai and Sejuani. He's not really playing the like heavy farm AP style, but everyone is like, yep, TL's the best team in the league, and he's just not even playing it at all. He's only played Maokai and Sejuani.
I think Energy should maybe look to take a page out of that book potentially, because it just feels like the meta that most teams are gravitating toward, it does not align with what they've had success with before. Not to say it can't, but I don't know. Sometimes you just like, if you deviate off what works, it just might not work as well.
Yeah, I mean, you have to always try and go for what works for you when you are in times of dire need like this. If you're at the top, then you have the luxury of trying the different styles and being like, you know what, we're gonna do AD mid laners every single game with turbo clearing AP jungles, and we're gonna get really good at that style versus Sejuani and ganking a lot more and being frontline and stuff. But if you are really in crunch time and have not been performing well, like last split plus the beginning of this split, I feel like you just got to go with what is exactly best for you right now to get those wins. Kind of have to adapt with the times. So.
Yeah, they need to build some confidence.
I think they building confidence, because it is a ripple effect, and you're talking about, you understand how some issues behind the scenes you can understand, or communication issues, or like how to see the game. Sometimes like those things can bleed, like, because you're thinking about that all the time, and so I feel like those things can, when you're playing, you're kind of thinking about them, or you're subconsciously when you're practice, then your practice gets worse because you have conflicts with your teammates, and I don't know. That's all stuff that's like just speculation and stuff. But I can see a world where stuff like that can have influences that bleed into the rest of your game. But as far as the Sejuani point, thought Sejuani has been like borderline OP for pro play, where you can rely on your teammates to carry, not necessarily for solo queue. Hands up. Not necessarily gonna spam climb and solo queue if you have to rely on teammates. But since the addition of the buffs to Warmogs and Heartsteel, these HP stacking items, everyone was so focused on Skarner, and correctly so, because Skarner was turbo OP also, as the mega HP scaler. But Sejuani, previous to these changes, got a buff to her percent max health or her health scaling damage on the W2. The W1 and W2 both got increased. She actually does very good damage with a Heartsteel start or a Warmog start, and the solo queue win rates are way higher with those two items. Rushing an HP item on Sejuani has been meta a lot in the past, but for some reason in solo queue, the majority of people are still doing like Sunfire and stuff like that, and so you at home can kind of take advantage of that. And my personal preference is the Heartsteel because I like the big, like that big auto attack damage and stacking. But the Warmog's move speed, if you can actually rely on your teammates and you just need to be the one moving around getting these initiations, but the move speed and the regeneration, like both those items are very, very good to rush. Pro play is on the train. This is more advice for people in solo queue if you want to do like an easier like tank style champion, because all the pros are like, yeah, Sejuani's very good for pro play. It's one of the most picked champions in the last week for if you combine all of the regions.
Do you think Heartsteel would still be good for pro though? I can definitely see it for solo queue because you're scrapping enough.
My advice was specifically for solo queue. Yeah. That's why I said that. Yeah. That's why I like the Heartsteel, because solo queue you're scrapping. You need to do more yourself.
Yeah, I always have to force myself to not build that item because I have such a strong bias for it because it's fun. You know, it's actually just dopamine generator. It's
the
like
noise they put into it is so
good. And the little dot gets more and more red, and then you hit them, and they get the sound, and you get the health.
When
and
the dot goes red, you have no choice. You have to go.
Yeah, you have to. I've died so many times going for a random Heartsteel proc for no reason. And just suiciding for it.
That's
so
me in top lane. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that item, I feel like I'm so biased toward wanting to build it that I have to like force myself not to. I'm like, okay, I want Heartsteel. I'm not gonna buy it. I'm gonna buy something else.
5 range champs.
I'm giving you the okay. I'm giving you the okay. Get in there.
You're an enabler.
Yeah. Play some Heartsteel Sejuani. I guarantee it is good for solo queue. For pro play, yeah, Warmog's probably a bit better.
All right. Well, the next matchup is we're not going to do predictions, right? Or do you want to do predictions?
Yeah, might as well. We're doing the look ahead episode.
Okay, I'll go. I still think Energy can probably win this, but actually, no, screw it. I'm going Mortals. I'm going Mortals, man. Energy has looked so bad. I feel bad doing it because I don't know. I just want Energy to be good because we saw how good they could be last year, and I want them to be that team. But they just haven't shown me anything.
They're just not right now.
They're just not. I got to go Immortals 2-1.
Yeah. What about you?
I'll go Energy. I think Immortals looked so sus this last week.
They did, yeah.
I think Energy, they won a game. I don't think they're so hopeless that they can't figure out something.
Yeah.
Plus, last year, you know, they seem to be driven by doubt. So
not like the dive. That's the problem.
That's the problem.
They should be. But
wait, you gotta do your.
Alas, they do seem to, you know, flourish when it looks completely hopeless for them. So
yeah, Kobe has abandoned them. So this would be their time to win Worlds.
True, he was stuck by him for 10 years, and then they lose one game this split, and you're out. So I don't know. I don't think they are totally doomed. So I would say Energy.
So I'll give you a lane by lane breakdown. I think bot lane goes to Immortals.
Okay.
I think that, like I said before, yeah, there's a couple of moments that looked pretty rough for FBI for me that just stand out in my memory from casting the games. Like also one of the Barons where the rest of the team's trying to burn it, he flashes out and they don't have damage, and then a couple of team fights, poor positioning. But I think tactical is looking really good right now. And Ole, even though Ole's not really gotten the spotlight. But I think that Contracts has a pretty big advantage in the jungle over Armeo. And I do have some pretty big confidence there for him and Palafox to be able to direct the game. So I'm still going to go with Energy. Still going to go with Energy. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
He has not been great, but I think that is just... I think it is something that he can turn around in a short time period. I don't think it is a like long lasting thing, and that might be Cope. But I'm gonna go with Energy. Top is pretty close. For me. I know a lot of people were flaming Dokla for the Cassante game where they did lane swap and he was super starved. But there, like some of the plays, it was like FBI is actually the one who's in bad position, and like he got TF gold carded and cleansed, and then Dokla, kind of does the frontline thing where he goes in and then he dies instead. But I think as long as Skarner is banned, I think Dokla will be. I think the top line's pretty even.
All right. Well,
for him and Castle.
we got two people on the energy side then, so we'll see. You said you're off the train, but you're
I'll
back
go
on the train.
2-1. Yeah.
You're on the train on Thursdays. Maybe not on weekends, but you're gonna be on the train on Thursdays.
I'm looking at that train, and I'm like,
Maybe it's a good train after all. You're getting back on. All right. 100 Thieves, TL. That's going to be the next matchup. That one's on Thursday. TL obviously looked really good this weekend. Obviously, it was against a kind of lower level of competition. They played against Shopify. They dominated them. Jan was styling in game 2 on the Lucian. Game 1 wasn't even remotely close. And Team Liquid, played the map really well. Game 1 was like a 6-7K gold lead with only a couple kills at 18 minutes. Like this was very, very one-sided. And one of the things that I think really kind of stuck with me was Licorice talking about TL on the desk and why he thought that they were good. And he was saying that he feels that they're the team that is getting the best practice, because when you're playing against a lot of top teams, he said that the games get sloppy and then maybe they're just better at team fighting, so they kind of win at the end. He was saying Team Liquid is playing their scrims like their stage games, and they're playing very controlled, very measured, and they're just making it feel hopeless for people. So I think when you're already the big dog, when you're getting the best practice, it is really going to spell a lot of success.
That's good to hear. That has always been one of my
before.
biggest pet peeves is players and teams that don't treat scrims like they would a stage game, when there's people just being completely reckless, like just YOLO trading when they know they shouldn't because they're limit testing or whatnot. I'm like, dude, that is so troll. So it's nice to hear TL is having that really measured, disciplined practice, and obviously it's paying off for them.
Yeah, I know for sure that like their eyes are set on redemption at Worlds, because they were so pissed, the players, the coaching staff, about every loss at MSI and like missed opportunities at MSI. And they felt like they got so much better. They learned so much. They were able to implement the things that they learned in their losses. And so, yeah, this whole split, I already knew like Team Liquid is just going to be an engine in the LCS. And they're driving straight towards the next international. Very, very hungry. I don't think they're going to let up at all. It doesn't seem like any of these players are players that do get burnt out easily. So it's one of those environments where Spawn as a coach, and him, is like a very strong driving force, and Core JJ is very similar in how much attention he always puts in practice and trying to remain focused. Then we added Impact to that, and you're just like adding all of these like strong work ethic, like heavy focus, both in game and out of game factors. I feel like this team is it's going to be very hard to kick them off course and get upset victories versus this team. That being said, I mean, there was a little funniness there with APA in the mid lane and
dude, that game 1, his all chat game 1 was one of the funniest things, where he just in the middle of the game he just goes, "When does Shopify play?"
Yeah.
That was so cold. I love it. That was some good banter, because it was true. It was like, what are they doing? They're just doing nothing. I mean, he wasn't wrong.
Yeah. Do you guys care at all, or would this be a mark against them that they are only playing one style right now? Because they're basically playing double tank topside every single game. There was one Rumble game, but 2 Zac, the Udyr game, the Xante game, 4 Maokais and a Sejuani, and then they're doing 2 carries, with APA and Yana, their carries, and then basically, just a support that goes along with that. So they're not really playing a lot of variety. I know in spring, that was one of the things that we're kind of like holding against them, because the only times they won was when they played this style, and every time they deviated, they would lose again, and then they just go back to this style. So I do kind of wonder, with as strong as AP junglers are, as strong as some of these things are, like I would like to know that TL could play it, because if your goal truly is, all right, it's all about Worlds, we're so good, we're going to stomp the LCS, we're going to go to Worlds, we're going to be able to compete against these people, you need to be flexible, I think, generally, to be able to have success against that higher level of teams.
I'm not worried at all because like there's some differences. Like I mean, Zeri, Smolder, Callista, Lucian are like very different AD carry champions. So like while they are all carries, like very different, ways you're playing around your bottom lane, and bottom lane is kind of been the main focus for this team for a while.
I'm mostly talking about top side.
I'm not worried about Umti not playing AP turbo clear squishy jungles because I just don't see Riot ever making a meta where you're not gonna want one tank somewhere on your team, like multiple tanks and stuff. And we can bring up the question of is it a problem if both Impact and Umti can't play carries or won't play carries? For me, that question has been solved many times. For Impact, I'm like, he can play carries. I know this is a contentious thing, but maybe with some Gangplank buffs, he's always been a Gangplank player, stuff like that. I feel like there are certain carries where it's not going to be like an Impact play, but I'm not particularly worried at this stage for TL.
I think it's a super valid question because and it was something that we concern we raised in spring with them. I think now it's a little bit different because even though they are sticking to the same style, they haven't really been challenged on it.
Yep.
And I think it's very different when you are the front runner in the LCS versus just another like average team perception wise, right? And right now I think most people agree TL is probably the number one team, at least top two. So teams are preparing against them, they're taking them seriously. They're aware of what TL is going to bring, and TL, they're kind of doing what's expected for the most part, but they're still winning. Mm-hmm. So I think that if they were losing while looking inflexible, it would be one thing. But the fact that these teams, they're for sure going into it prepared, they're ready for what Liquid's going to do, but they still can't beat it. To me, I'm like, why change what's working? And I think that if people do start, not letting empty on Maokai Sejuani, we might see something like some of these carry junglers. I'm sure he can play it, but, it is one of those things where the whole team style would probably change a bit because, like I was saying with energy, there's certain things that you're able to do on a jungler when you're playing these champs that can get a little bit more creative and aren't just full clearing.
And TL's whole comp is like always 5v5, two main carries, frontliners engage, and they 5v5.
The whole reason I'm super excited for this particular matchup is that in my eyes, 100 Thieves is currently our most flexible team in the entire LCS. Mm-hmm. So I am hoping and pretty excited to see 100 Thieves draft in particular start to make Team Liquid react. To your point, Meteos, I feel like this is a team that is going to try and at the very least force you to answer some very unique questions. Quid has played all types of champions. Quid is the god champion pool to me. Like this guy is playing tanks, melee carries, range carries, burst carries, DPS carries. Like Quid will play anything and everything under the sun. And you even have people talking about how the Ezreal pick that he's playing is much more like Quid than it is the overarching meta. AD mid lane meta. Even though we're also seeing the Lucian mid and everything come out now, and everyone's going to be on the train of like, why are there so many AD carries in my games? And I kind of agree with that.
AD is weak, guys. The AD carry is weak. That's why we're drafting 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah, especially when I'm seeing games where it's a double marksman bottom lane, a Corki in the mid lane, and a Vayne top lane. And I completely agree with some of those complaints. But back to the main point is like this series, I feel like, has the opportunity to be our most creative team versus our best team, and you get to see them pushed.
Yeah, it should be really fun. And my real takeaway is that marksmen need more buffs because where are the marksman junglers?
Freak season!
Kindred's fine. Kindred's good.
Kindred is actually amazing.
I know it's good, but where are the LCS games for Kindred?
Well,
Come
it's
on.
hard to play Kindred when you've got a Tristana Corki mid every game.
Exactly.
You need a mixed
So
damage
they need
type.
more buffs so they can be.
Oh,
so you can,
there you go.
You
there
need to be able
go.
to have 5 of them.
Well, they just need to add make it so longsword has armor penetration on it. So then you just have full AD
There you go.
team.
Yeah. Well, and longsword should also have armor, because you can block things with your sword, right?
Dude, I'm actually so
Some
ready
defense.
for some Tristana Corki nerfs, or at least some changes to get him to just be played bot lane. Like, they're just so boring for mid lane. It's like the Azir. Like, you can't have these champs that are just so defensive. Some long mobility spell that they never need to press, that they can just use to get away from any gank. Like, it is
think
not it.
Especially because of the changes around mid lane brushes and stuff, how far back the mid lane brushes got put. It's already this whole season it's been way harder to gank mid lane compared to the past. And then you put that plus a safe champion. It's so hard to actually get killed as a mid lane Tristana, right? So I definitely agree. It's a little bit of a problem, and marksmen are everywhere right now and competitive. So they are very, very strong. For the TL thing, I'm not going to care about their champion pool too much, but if we reach week 4, week 5, and I still have only seen this one style, I'm gonna start wondering okay guys, let's see something a little bit different. Make sure that you're getting the best practice and not just only focusing on winning in the regular season. On the 100 Thieves side, I think it should be an interesting one. I guess my confidence maybe went down in them a little bit after the Dig series. Game 1, was very competitive. They actually had a pretty significant lead, but they couldn't close it out. That was the Zven Smolder game, where he was kind of like the lone hope over on the Dignitas side, and they just couldn't really deal with him. They couldn't get their engage all really kind of aligned to actually take him down.
I mean, they gave up so many free kills on the side lanes. Like their comp for
Sniper
split
was dying
pushing.
a lot.
I felt like every time we'd go into a replay, we'd come back to live, and I'd be like, "Oh, another one's dead. I guess Dignitas are gonna get some more money, and Dignitas are gonna be able to group, and Dignitas are gonna be able to do this, and Dignitas are gonna be able to do that." Whereas I thought, for the first 10, 15 minutes of this game from draft 2, I was super excited. Where they have the long range or the global ultimates plus the multiple split pushers. I was so excited for this to see it happen. And then we got that clash of styles, but they just completely fell apart in their coordination and their attention to detail when they were trying to split push later. And they just gave up too many openings to Dig. And then Dig did such a good job on as soon as they got these picks that they were immediately forcing, and then they immediately went to that Baron, and then all of a sudden this Baron gold swing, I think we were tracking at the time, was from the moment that they got the first pick into the Baron into all the towers, by the end of it was 7-something thousand gold swing off of that.
Baron was taken at 25.55. They were 4,200 gold behind, and then at 29 minutes they were 4,000 gold ahead.
Okay, so 8.
And I guess the Baron buff would have
swing.
expired before that, but still within 3 minutes basically.
Yeah, and the entire time they had because of the lane swap and having Zven be able to lane the whole time versus melee and just turbo stack on the Smolder. He set the pro record for Smolder stacks they had at
Fastest is 225.
1901, I believe.
Yeah, 19 minutes or so to 225, I think it was.
Yep.
So it was one of those games where I felt like you see, at times you see the confidence from Sniper and Quid and whatnot. It's really paying dividends. In this game, it felt like they were getting a little bit overconfident because if I remember early in the game, we're seeing Jensen and stuff get killed in the side lanes on the Corki, and they were kind of finding these 1v1s that were really working well. Sniper even I think got a solo kill early on against Licorice, but then Dignitas just started having one person hovering their solo laners, right? They would have Isles behind Jensen, or they'd have Spica behind Jensen. Someone would always be there as that second man, and it didn't feel like Quid and Sniper were playing with respect to the fact that there could be an extra person there and still looking for those dives and still looking for those plays. And then they just started getting picked off and they started getting killed. And then we had that one play right before Baron, which was really pivotal, where Sniper is trying to kill the inhibitor tower in Licorice's face while Licorice is hitting him, and he ends up getting so far behind. He uses his empowered Q on the tower while Licorice is hitting him, and then Licorice ends up killing him and then TPing to the Baron, and that was a pretty game changing play. So definitely a rough one to lose for 100 Thieves. But then they come off that game and they got blasted in the second game. Dig was looking really, really dominant in the second game, and Zven had another strong performance and actually won Player of the Week. So Zven, I think, has been looking really good across these 2 weeks. Even in their loss last week to Cloud9, he had that first game where he was like 8-1-8 or something on Varus, and they were like 2v2 killing, Berserker and whatnot. So Dig had a pretty strong showing, and I feel like I guess I'm just having trouble deciding how good I think or how not good I think 100 Thieves are, because they're kind of like a big question mark.
Because you're like, they only beat Energy.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. Well, and it's just not a lot of games that we've seen yet, right? Yeah. But it's like there's a lot of question marks on, because all in spring, every pro is telling me this team is frauds. Like these guys aren't good. We slam them in scrims 24/7, but they kept winning on stage. And then in playoffs, eventually they did get knocked down. But it's like all the info I was always getting about them was always different than what I was seeing on stage. And then so coming into summer, it's kind of like, okay, well, what's the real 100 Thieves? Are they going to kind of turn back into a pumpkin and be this team that everyone's telling me they are, or are they going to continue their stage results?
I mean, they're just still pretty young, and we could see this a lot in the split pushing game. It's something that is one of the hardest things to learn in competitive League of Legends is how to play a good late game split push, like full map game plan. And it's one of the biggest things that APA specifically, when he came back from MSI, it was like, I learned so much about split pushing. That was like his biggest takeaway from playing against the best teams in the world. And you can see it in like some of the Team Liquid games. But Sniper is still so young. Incorporating into pro play, the coaching staff from 100 Thieves themselves are always talking about how they're constantly trying to teach him like whatever different fundamentals or aspects of pro play and all these things. Like he's really good in his individual lane and in the matchups and stuff. But the team as a whole, learning some of these things and like keeping up cleanliness and comms and coordination and stuff towards those later stages, I think is something that is going to show variance in these games. So I think they are a good team. Quite clearly, they have a very high peak, and they definitely are a good team, but not fully refined.
Yeah, to the point on their split pushing, I think that this game was a little unique in the sense that it was kind of a similar comp that Energy pulled out with the Yone, Karthus, Senna, where you have like they have Yone, Camille in side lane. So I actually think it makes sense for them to play really aggressive and look for the solo kills because you've got like a Karthus and Senna ult to back you up. So I think Dig does definitely deserve some credit for being able to like survive that pressure and counter hit because it's not a fun time to be Jensen. You're Corky. In the entire game, he was just getting traded on by Yone under his turret, getting away with like 100 HP every single time. Has to be ready for the Karthus ult, but I think they ran triple TP on Dig. Smolder had a TP, and then what fell apart to me, I think, was like the Scion looked really sus, like the Scion Senna combo. Smolder getting solo kills in lane or 2v2 kills or whatever, like that's just not real, right? Like Smolder's supposed to be this weak laner, and then he's just coming out of lane with multiple kills. He was like 10-0. So to me, I feel like that was the bigger failure than the split pushing because like, in any of these things, like a small imbalance can really, the difference between killing some guy and him getting away with 100 HP is not that big, but the consequences of it is huge, right? So I think, it didn't work out for him, but I like that they're playing this kind of style. I think it's strong being able to play like side lanes and whatnot.
Yeah, no, I really like the flexibility that this 100 Thieves team has shown, and they definitely can execute on a lot of the different styles. So it's not just like, oh, they're only good at one thing and they try a bunch of random stuff. So definitely very excited for this series. Let's do our predictions for this series for 100 Thieves versus Team Liquid, since we are doing our predictions for this
TL20
for this entire episode. I'll go TL21 and say it is going to be a more fun series. And I don't think that is actually a crazy reach or anything, because I really do think that this 100 Thieves team has the capability of surprising Team Liquid and also actually executing on these game plans.
Yeah, I would say probably 2-0 TL as well. I think they're just looking so solid right now, and 100 Thieves has historically struggled against the teams that are, just good and solid. I think they do better in chaotic games where, their opponents might take more risks or give more openings. So I just don't think TL's going to give that to them.
Yeah, they looked so solid this week. I thought their macro was
All right,
really
next
strong.
up, we got
Shopify, Cloud9.
We got Cloud9 versus Shopify, and Shopify is, how do we say this? They're struggling, that's for sure.
It was hard to watch their games this last week. I don't want to flame Tomio too much because he's new, but I'm glad he's not using the C2 Meteos name on stage because that performance was not good. His Zyra was. It looked like he hadn't played it before.
There was a few times he ulted with no plants down and stuff.
Not even just that, but even just the basics of the build. He went blue smite on Zyra, so you don't have the red poke in
the proc, yeah,
and slow. He rushed cooldown boots, which makes no sense on that champion.
No faded ashes.
Yeah, I mean, you like cooldown boots suck on her. You want Sorks. It's so important because there were times where he would full combo someone, and it's like that. They probably should have died if he just had a reasonable build. So, no, that was hard to watch. They looked so lost. They looked so beneath their competition. It was, I don't know.
I mean, the craziest thing is, you're talking about the Tomio build and stuff. I don't even think he had the worst builds on the team. I think Fake God's build was even worse. They were playing against I'm pretty sure it was the Fake God what's it, Cassante game, if I'm remembering correct. Yeah, he was playing against Udyr. He was playing against Impact's Udyr, and he went Merc Treads and then Force of Nature, or no, not Force of Nature. He went what's the Magic Sunfire?
Kanik?
No, it's
Hollow Radiance.
Hollow Radiance. He went that item, and they're playing against Zeri Tristana on the other team with 2 tanks top and Zeri Tristana, and I was just I actually couldn't believe it. I understand if you need some sort of MR, but it's not like this build is going to make you win the 1v1 against Udyr. He lost 3 plates in the solo 1v1 to Impact, and then just stacks MR for the time he has to go into the team fight. APA had an LDR before he even had 1 armor item, right? There was just no way he was ever going to be tanky. So I thought the builds in this one were crazy. Yeah, I thought that was actually crazy. They were struggling, and that's just something. It's builds. I'm the most on the side of gameplay when you're doing the gameplay to builds importance thing, right? I'm not usually someone who's super harping on someone's builds, because at the end of the day, it's you have to be able to perform and you have to be able to play, and that's going to be the 90-95% of it. But there are some times where it's just is just so wrong that it just doesn't even make sense, And I thought this was one of those situations. So I was really kind of just disappointed in seeing that the build from Fake God.
I think another problem is that this is 2 series in a row. Both weeks have been really, really stompy on the receiving end here for Shopify. So it feels very difficult to not even have one game in either weekend to be able to point to try and build a positive or have hope, type story. It also is this is one of the weekends where afterwards, Insanity's tweeting out stuff he's, super disappointed, and they're embarrassed, and so it's just man, it is looking very, very dire here for this squad, and going up against Cloud9 is a very difficult opponent right now. Even though Cloud9 have been sloppy in some of their wins, they still keep getting their wins and are still finishing these games, and honestly, the areas for improvement for Cloud9, I feel they have. After each series, they're oh yeah, immediately into review, and it's clear, what they're going to start looking at. So yeah, I think this is going to be a very uphill battle for Shopify, but that's not
yeah. I mean,
that's not a hot take. I think that's 100% of people have that take.
Yeah, it's just tough because they played what most people would say was the easiest possible team they could play in Immortals. They got absolutely slapped, and then they played probably the hardest possible team in TL, and they got absolutely slapped, right? So like you said, there's nothing to point to be like, well, this is what they're going to be able to do. I think besides, people are still like, well, Bvoy's good, so you have to hope that you can get Bvoy going, and that's some sort of kind of recipe for success. But it doesn't feel like they're particularly playing around him. It doesn't feel like they're doing that well in lanes. It doesn't feel like they really are sure what to do on the map. So it's definitely really tough. And Impact crushed Fake God on the Udyr side of the Udyr K'Sante, then took K'Sante and almost solo killed him and went even, in the rest of the lane. So it was definitely a tough one for them. I think C9 are clearly going to be massive favorites against Shopify. I don't think anyone's going to predict Shopify, spoilers. But I guess I still don't feel like it's come together for Cloud9, and I am kind of hitting that point where I'm like, will it come together? Are they going to be able to ever get to the kind of levels that people were hoping for when the kind of initial super team got announced in spring? Because we all had them power rank first. Everyone kind of thought they were going to win the LCS. Everyone thought they were going to be so dominant. And yeah, I think Cloud9 is definitely looking solid, but I still don't think that their bot lane in particular has looked anywhere close to the level of dominance that like I was kind of initially expecting when it came together. Berserker feel like he has kind of taken a step back or a step down compared to the level of play that he had in the past. Thanatos, I think, we have to wait longer to see because, he is newer. I think he had a stronger showing this week than last week. But yeah, I'm just kind of trying to get a read on Cloud9, and it feels like a little bit hard because I do know that they're obviously incredibly talented. I think they probably are the most talented team in the league still, as far as like what is your peak. Yeah. But it's just a question of like, are they actually going to get there, right? Like, are we holding on to something that doesn't exist? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that for Shopify, they just have to hope C9 is Wilden on the day. I think I would give them like a 1% chance of winning that one, maybe.
1% is crazy. 1%?
All right, 0%.
Oh my god.
No, I don't know. I mean,
1% is 1 out of 100 games. You think if they played 100 times, they would only win one game? That's
from
crazy.
what I've seen so far, yeah.
That's crazy. That's like.
No, he thinks they'll win 0. Did you hear the correction?
I mean, maybe they'll prove me wrong and show up, but I agree with C9. I think they have the highest ceiling out of any team by like maybe even a decent margin. They've also had, I guess, like the highest variance in their play where like they have some really sus plays, which, I mean, it's not the end of the world. It's the beginning of this team playing together. I think a lot of it is like, like you said in the Immortals game, Thanatos gets a little like too eager and sometimes goes in and kills himself. But that's just part of learning, playing as a team, knowing your limits and whatnot. And I think the fact that they're still winning gives me a lot of hope for this team. I think I would not be surprised if C9 just got it together at some point here and just like swept the whole split. So I'm hopeful for them,
especially for
after spring, where it was like in spring every week. I'm like, okay, surely now.
That was best of ones. Yeah. That was best of ones. Anything could happen.
True. There are some specific things too for Cloud9 where I'm like, this is gonna be so incredibly hard for Immortals. Where like the annoying one where Berserk.
Shopify.
For Shopify, the annoying one where they had the game where Berserker was like Senna mid with JoJo harassing him.
Oh yeah, against the Jace, right?
Yeah, Mask,
yeah,
dude.
Mask.
I was like for Mask watching that.
And then another team did it like right after that as well.
He just he's like stood by the Raptors. Then Jace jumps in hammer form. He's there just auto attacking him. Then walks down towards bot and then just wraps by the enemy Raptors and walks back in mid lane again. And he had to base, and his only buy was rebuying the health potion that he had to use.
And I'm like, you're already playing against JoJo, which is one of the most aggressive, like our most aggressive, like annoying mid laner to play against. And then you also are playing against Berserker at level 1, and you have to go back and base, and you're just like, I was like, oh my god, that is so insanely painful. If they do that to Insanity, I feel like it's gonna be a complete collapse there. So I don't know.
I think more teams will be aware of the Senna cheese.
Yeah, I mean, we already saw two teams.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things. It's like if you're not expecting it, it will punish you super hard, but it's not that hard to just have in the back of your mind, okay, they've got Senna. I should maybe ward level 1, play to a side where I know the Senna is not currently standing. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's part of learning the game. Those tactics always pop up, supports level 1 ganking, junglers level 2 ganking. It's just champion-specific things that once you know about.
It's like the Twitch stuff. Everyone knows if there's Twitch in your game, level 1, you have to wait till he shows or he's going to queue in on you.
Yeah, if you don't see it for a while, though, sometimes you forget. Those are slip-ups that can happen. And, I just think the more you see it, the more aware you are of it, and the less likely it is to work.
Yeah, I think lane phase in particular is going to be brutal for Shopify in this series. Cloud9 side, I feel like, is going to have some pretty big advantages early on, and then I don't see like Shopify being able to mount comebacks, because one of the other knock-on effects of having disastrous games the first 2 weeks is that then it starts to be, that's in the back of your mind. It starts to be hard to come in and actually make comebacks happen in games while you're on stage, because it just like builds up with all the other losses and all the other pressure, especially if, like we're already seeing on social media, where it's very clear that they feel really bad about the performances themselves. So good luck.
And even beyond that, it's funny because it's so early. It feels so early, but this will be the 3rd week. If Energy and Shopify, they're the 2 winless teams. If they lose, you're 0-3. There's only 7 series that you play. That's almost half of it done, and you haven't gotten a win yet. You're already in a really bad spot. Even just standings wise, it becomes very difficult to then be able to come back and actually catch up to teams, towards the top, if that's kind of the goal that you're going for. So, you do need to start picking up some wins. I don't think it'll be here for Shopify. I do think Cloud9 are looking strong. For me, I'm just kind of trying to evaluate over these next couple of weeks. Do I think Cloud9 is a team that can actually take down TL and challenge for a championship, or are they going to end up finishing more similarly to how they did in spring, where they still kind of had some of those issues and they just could never get across the hump?
My gut reaction to that right now is that Cloud9 is a team that could take down TL, but I would not bet on it. I think
definitely not today.
Just the mistakes, or like some of the overchasing, or some of the I just feel like if you're playing the numbers game, and you're just looking at odds, I feel like TL has been a lot more consistent, has just made a few less unforced errors than Cloud9, although Cloud9 should have a very strong peak to this team.
All right, well, predictions. I think probably everyone's going Cloud9 down the line.
2-0.
All right, and then we got the match of the week here. It's going to be FlyQuest versus Dig, which is spicy for a lot of reasons.
Yep.
This one's going to be really, really exciting.
We have a tweet that was from Na Men. They did this interview on June 15th at the beginning of the split with Jensen.
NA Men.
Na Men is the parade thing.
Yeah.
I think this one, just everybody already knew this story of Jensen getting kicked off FlyQuest, and everybody was already kind of angry about it. But the quote that they use for it is directly from Jensen, where he says, quote, "I messaged FlyQuest about if I was kicked, and I was told to wait a few days. But then it was like, the decision wasn't made back then. Don't worry. We're not hiding it behind your back." And he says, "But obviously that's bullshit. I know it was coming." So everybody's already looking at all these members from Dignitas, like Jensen and Spica, that was a content creator and got released from being a content creator from FlyQuest as well. And so, yeah, Dignitas revenge matchup versus FlyQuest is going to be a banger.
I mean, I think FlyQuest have just become the villains of the league. It's kind of funny. It's really just the 2 players, right? It's Bwipo and Inspired that I feel like everyone is kind of focusing their ire towards, who, people are feeling some type of way about everything they said about Jensen. And I think Jensen for sure has got to be feeling some frustration about that himself. Then you're kicked off the team. It feels like he was absolutely scapegoated by FlyQuest for their loss in the finals. Then they, burn out of MSI. They do horrible at MSI, and you get kicked and you get replaced by a guy that, people are from FlyQuest are saying, he's more aggressive, he's going to fit better, he's going to do all this stuff better. And it's like, I don't really see it. Maybe Quad will be able to develop into that player that, is even better than Jensen. But right now, I think Jensen's definitely the better mid laner. They seem to be playing a very similar style, but Jensen's just kind of doing it better. So it would be so sweet for Jensen to be able to take them down. And you already know it's the same feelings on FlyQuest, because Inspired and Bwipo, if you're blaming this guy for everything, if you're telling Jensen he's ass, and he's the reason that you lost in finals, and he's the reason that things went wrong at MSI, and that's kind of your feeling, then losing to him would feel terrible.
You know what I love though around this whole thing is that feels like authentic beef, which is something that we haven't had a lot of in the league. You don't really get that kind of situation anymore. And I think by the time this episode comes out, the content piece will be released, because I think it's coming out today, where Jat sits down with Inspired and Jensen. Ooh. And I am so interested in watching that, because it's just like that's such a good content piece. It's like, I'm so interested in what they're going to say to each other, because obviously, they have some beef. They don't hate each other as people, but obviously things didn't work out in the team, and there was some dysfunction there, and just addressing it is pretty high for sure. The other one I wanted to touch on though,
do you think they'll be fully honest though in a content piece like that? I think it's so hard, because that you're not just saying what you think. It's also being evaluated by so many people, and the fact that it's already blown up to this degree. I think that's the part that makes it hard to know, like, are they really saying what they feel?
Well, they already had that piece that came out where Inspired was saying, when they were discussing the Quad promotion a lot earlier, and he says in that piece that he was unsure because he liked playing with Jensen, and he was originally like unsure about the change himself. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's stories that are out there. Yeah, as far as what you think is the actual reasons or what actually went on behind the scenes.
100%. The thing I wanted to mention about FlyQuest being the villain was there was also that content piece on LCS this past week where the players were reading out mean tweets or whatever. Yeah. And the one Bwipo did when he was sitting next to Busio blew my mind. I couldn't believe that. It was something about there was 3 things in the tweet. One of them was Bwipo's Gangplank. The guy, it was like clearly just a jab at Bwipo. He was saying like, are you gonna like watch your character when you Gangplank ult? And Bwipo took it seriously. He didn't laugh about it. He said, "You're clueless." Like he took offense to it. And then another one was about Busio not being able to play Melee's engage supports, and Bwipo just straight throws him under the bus when he's sitting right next to him. He's like, "Oh, that one's true. Yeah, he can't play him." And I was just like, what? You're not going to laugh at yourself, but you're going to like throw your boy who's sitting right next to you under the bus. Like, I could not believe that.
Also, Bwipo did legitimately get like solo killed while watching it.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it was such an, you can't defend that play. Like, obviously,
you just have to say, "Yep, my bad."
Yeah, you just go, I'm a dumbass. Like, anyone who does like that, just laugh about it.
Or if you're saying that you were looking at your screen, then
that's worse.
I think that is worse. Like, what?
I don't know. When I saw that, I was just thinking like, this guy's really, really buying into this whole villain thing, because that is just not a good look in any way.
Yeah. Woof. I mean, we'll see. That if you want to watch that, it's LCS Pros React to Community Flame. It's on the LCS YouTube. Also got tweeted out. That's the video that Meteos is talking about. There's actually been so much good pro content this year coming out on the LCS YouTube. So if you guys haven't been checking it out, you should get in there. I know a lot of people love pros, but not only has there been pros, there has been, we had the Zven Yawn piece talking about their kind of like past beef that has been squashed or whatever about the rejected handshake. We have the LCS Pros reacting to the Community Flame. Obviously, the dives on there. We got lots of stuff on there, and more stuff is coming up as well. You talked about the piece that should already be released when this comes out. I know you have some more content coming up, so there's all kinds of cool stuff that's going to be on there.
Back on this point that you were talking about though, with Busio not being able to play melee supports, and like Bwipo saying like, "Oh yeah, that's true," in their post-match interview. Crazy. In their post-match interview where they had the whole team there and they're talking to Inspired, and he mentions, or I have to look at it to see who's talking at each point, but they mentioned that with the change in meta, it changes how the team played, where
Yeah.
before it was, Inspired taking space and being the engage, and now it's Busio. And so they ask Busio about it as well, and he's like, yeah, it is different now, and I have to take space and be the melee and stuff like that.
There's Bwipo in the interview. I do remember that.
Okay,
And,
yeah.
So to Bwipo's credit, he did give Busio some credit there. He said, he's improved at it. So he's not totally.
He was nicer in the interview, you're saying?
Yeah, he's not totally putting Busio down at every opportunity, but I did think that pros piece was a little sus.
All right. Well, yeah, we definitely see one thing that FlyQuest are working on and talking about and thinking about.
It is kind of worth noting, though, that like Busio's melee sports have been a big question mark. It's
The
not
Nautilus
so much
at
about-
MSI, woo!
Especially in the big pressure matches. I didn't think in spring he was that bad, and through most playoffs I didn't think he was that bad. He was horrible in finals. He was horrible at MSI. That's just true.
I
right?
think this split even he hasn't been that good on these picks. So it's less about what is Busio's level. It's more about just what do you say about your teammates in public that I kind of had an issue with.
I felt like it was a nerves thing too. When I looked at like, at least, I mean, you could talk about like, okay, he's got issues with his game. There's things that he can improve on. Everyone does, right? And he is a young player. But I thought overall he was pretty solid during most of the split and most of the playoffs. I thought it was a dramatic drop off in performance, decision making, mechanics, everything in playoffs or rather in finals and in MSI. So to me, that was like, okay, young player, big stage. It's a nerves thing, right? So I gave him, I'm not a pass, but like I understand it, and it's kind of a question mark of like, can you fix that? Because there are some players, and I'm sure you've played with players like this in the past. In every game I've been in, every scene I've been in, there's players that are known as this guy is amazing. And the scrim god stuff, I feel like isn't so much of a thing anymore. People always talk about that with like, oh, Golden Glue's the scrim god, or whatever. But that stuff is true. There's players that just can't sometimes get over the nerves in the big matches, and they are known to kind of crumble in those situations. They can't get past it. Other players, they struggle with it for a bit, and then it's not a problem anymore. So, that was kind of my read on Busio, and in finals and MSI, that it was probably a nerves thing, and I just kind of wanted to see if he could get past it.
I am really excited for the jungle matchup because I know everybody's obsessed with all the Inspired versus Jensen stuff, but I've been watching Spica's stream a lot too, and when he was on FlyQuest as an influencer, and so he is definitely also this. I guess it's gonna have to take a back seat as like secondary revenge story, but it's still right there, and it's directly opposite the like, I don't know. Evil is not a great word, but like the villain, the villain.
Trying to take down the evil Inspired.
Yeah, but from the community sentiment right now, that's what it feels like.
They're the villains.
It
100%.
literally is like this giant wave of everyone looking at them and being like, oh, I can't wait until Bwipo and Inspired lose games, and for Spica to also have been previously kicked off of FlyQuest and then brought back on as a content creator and then released as a content creator also before getting the Dignitas thing and then getting signed up on Dignitas, and for Inspired to have this community target on his back as being one of the main villains. If Spica, who they had as content creator, gets a jungle diff on Inspired that people ended up, being quite negative on, people are going to be like, why didn't we, we had Spica right there the entire time. And I don't know, there is this game. I hope there is all chat. I feel like this series is going to be crazy.
I don't know if these guys are going to be that big into the typing, but definitely I think post-game interview is going to be spicy no matter what.
Dude, if I'm Inspired, my camera's locked on mid lane, and I'm just thinking like, yo, where's Jensen's ward? When's his next trinket coming up?
Gotta gank this vegan.
How funny is it if Jensen just plays some carry thing and just styles on him though?
Oh, it'd be awesome. It'd be hilarious.
Yeah, it would be.
I'd be the good guys winning.
Yeah.
I mean, Jensen is really good to like dodging. I always feel like he's been so good at dodging ganks.
His movement.
Yeah, I mean, dodging skill shots, dodging ganks and stuff in lane. So yeah, I can like Inspired goes there and he's like wasting all his time trying to go for him, and Jensen's like
They are all gonna
up
be
and
locked
like,
in.
Oh my goodness.
This is literally the video game meme where it's like, it's that like that, and then it's like time for Dignitas FlyQuest sitting forward, right? Like these players are gonna be so.
It's an ego matchup. Straight
Yeah.
up. Like even no matter what these players say about it not being one, it is. It's just like there are extra stakes at play here. Like you want to win this match so bad.
I'm actually ridiculously excited for that.
Plus, even more like goodwill is on the side of Dig now because they were so fun this week in their post-match interview that we talked about at the beginning of the show, where it's like the good old school days of esports where you can tell, yeah, they're all veterans. These guys all still have so much passion for the game and they're having so much fun playing together. It's like the old Cloud9 days when people what loved most about the Sneaky and Meteos combination is that they were really good friends just playing the game. Yeah,
It's the vibes. You gotta have good vibes.
Yeah, they were winning a lot, but they're also just joking the whole time and having fun, and like that is kind of the vibes for Dignitas right now.
And I saw so many people tweeting, that they didn't think that they would be cheering for Dignitas, but like they're loving the vibes of the team. They're loving all these players that have been brought back. I mean, I am personally really, really excited to just have Licorice back in the league. I thought that was, crazy that he didn't end up having a spot. Obviously, there was extenuating circumstances because, he wanted to stay with Golden Guardians. Then Golden Guardians was gone, and all of a sudden he doesn't have a spot. But it's been great having him back. Zven.
He was amazing on the show, by the way.
Licorice.
Thanks
really
again because the pros, it's just their off day, right?
Yep.
And so they only get one off day. So I'm always so thankful when they do come on the show because it really it makes the whole show. It gives it a whole nother energy. They provide so much insight.
Yep.
And it's like their only off day because they're scrimming every other day.
And he was there all day because he did analyst desk, he did casting, and then he stayed after to do pros. So I think he did, actually. I'm almost 100% sure. But yeah, he was there basically all day. Zven has been performing really, really well. That was kind of a bit of a question mark for me. Not that would he be good or would he be decent or LCS level, but I just didn't know if he would be able to kind of start off on the right foot as much as he is, right? Because You
didn't know he was going to set a pro record?
No, I didn't. No, after role swapping back to his initial role and not having played for a split, I wasn't sure what kind of a Zven we were going to see. And it's easy, I think, when we haven't seen him play AD for 2 years, 3 years now, I think something like that. It's been a while, but he was just perennially a top 3 AD carry. Almost always it felt like he was up near the top, one of the best ADs, one of the hardest workers, and he's always been able to maintain that. So it has been really kind of cool to see him just come back and immediately hit the ground running, and he's been performing really, really well. So this is going to be exciting. Do we want to talk a little bit about the actual matchup itself?
Yeah, that's what I was going to transition into because as much as there's so much community, it's like 90-10 or something it feels like for community, all for Dignitas. So many players that I have been talking to are like scrims. FlyQuest has been doing very well. So the villain right now is very strong. So this is not going to be like, oh yeah, guaranteed win for the good guys or heroes or protagonists or whatever. Even though I do think Dignitas in their recent stage games, they look very good. Obviously with the setting the smolder stacking record and blah blah blah. The team fighting looked quite good. The story has been opposite for their scrims, and it's self-admitted from Licorice and Zven and everybody, and they're going on all the podcasts and shows, and they're like, yeah, we're losing most of our.
The only people they can beat is energy.
Exactly. They got their energy confidence boosted the day before from scrims from beating them, and so. It's funny because this series is so lopsided. Community one side, scrims on the other side. But if you go on breakdown of how they've kind of been playing the games, I feel like it's actually pretty similar. There hasn't been some huge shift. I mean, Inspired they talked about it a lot, with Inspired playing the AP clearing junglers and making their shift for Busio being engaged champ. But on the Dignitas side, I feel like that's what they've been doing as well, and they've it's not like it's going to be a crazy clash of styles or anything.
Yeah, I mean, FlyQuest are 1-1 right now. They went 1-2 against TL, then they went 2-1 against Energy. So, they were fairly competitive against TL. It felt like TL kind of was more dominant, I guess, in the wins. And then,
it really sounded, too, from the post-game interviews from the players and from Nukeduck, where they were like, it sounded like they were kind of expecting to lose the TL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, didn't they say something along the lines, I can't remember, I think it was maybe Bwipo, or someone said something that they thought basically TL was going to be their only real competition. Something to that effect. But they did drop a game against Energy, who we are being so negative on, it feels like, and they did lose a game to them. So, where are you kind of sitting at? Because I know from Scrum Rumors, everyone thinks FlyQuest is probably the second best team. But Dignitas has looked pretty solid on stage. Are you guys actually favoring FlyQuest as you would in the kind of preseason power rankings? Have you been swayed at all by the dig season?
I kind of have. I mean, honestly, I actually have. Right now, I'm leaning dig-sided, especially with Zven feeling so confident and him playing so well.
Yeah, I would lean dig as well. If I was doing prediction on match result, I would say 2-1 dig, because I think it will be close. I think FlyQuest is going to be a tough match for them. I think that the meta right now and Dig's read on it is pretty good for them. I think Licorice is really solid at playing. He's one of the top laners who will play the tanks, but also can whip out a carry as a counter picker or whatnot. So I really like that flexibility up there. Spica, he prefers playing more resource-heavy style. He likes being on these farm champions. And so I think the meta fits Dig really well. And, we're talking about the vibes, and I do think, the vibes and, the energy from the community and whatnot around this match will maybe be the X factor for him.
I was just going to say, so where would you power rank Dig then if you could right now? Because I don't actually have yours up here right now, Meteos, but I had them 5th. Kobe had them 5th.
I had them 4th.
You had them 4th. So if we're I'm feeling like they're probably going to be FlyQuest too. I'm are we all delusional? or are they actually a lot better than we thought?
I think it's a matter of moving up the timeline, because I'm pretty sure we all had similar reasoning of, it'll probably be a slow start for this team. And so we're ranking them a bit lower because we're expecting them to not have synergy and a lot of returning players that were not playing competitive last split, Zven with the role swap back, these sorts of things. And so we were kind of giving them time and placing them low. But I also think we are all a little bit delusional because of the storylines and because of the vibes. And that's not cold hard evidence,
We've been infected by the Dig season.
It's kind of back to our early discussion at the beginning of the episode on greatest of all time, and we're social impact is coming into play. They've got the entire
brainwashed us.
roster.
Dig season, baby.
It's Dig season.
Dig season. Down with the evil villain.
I think I would probably stand by my power rankings. Dig top 4. As far as if they're better than Fly, I really don't know. I think that's a hard call to make from what we've seen so far. But I think it'll be close.
Yeah,
I could see it going either way.
I think I'm delusional right now. I can see it. I can kind of go third person right now and be like, everyone's telling you all the scrims. FlyQuest are doing so much better. And I'm I've been burned by scrims before.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting. I mean, for me, my feelings on FlyQuest are still kind of the same, and it's just gonna depend upon how good will Quad be by the end of the split, right? What level can he get to? How well can they work with him? Because right now, I felt like this, at the beginning, and I still feel like this now, is that he is kind of just a worse version of Jensen, right? So I don't think that their team is going to be better with that change. But this is going to be such a spicy matchup. This is the most excited I have been for a regular season game in I don't know how long, in a really
Very
long time, in years.
Very long time.
Seriously, I'm actually so excited for this.
This is not to the level of what League was at that point, but the first game after Doublelift had left CLG to join TSM. I mean, that's probably the biggest move of all time at that point, right? Because it had been its arch rivals, and there was so much going into it. But that's a thing that I can think of, right? That we're not at that level, but we're approaching those levels. Like there is so much behind this.
Yeah, this is going to be really, really hype. Let's jump on to talk about the patch a little bit really quick, because we got a meeting we have to run to pretty soon. This ended up being a big one, a big episode. We're almost 100 minutes in here. We haven't even touched on the patch. There's quite a few changes that are coming out that have actually been tweeted out by Froxon, the head designer. And one of the most interesting ones, I think, is kind of the Varus changes. They're trying to make him more towards on hit instead of being as prevalent with the lethality builds that are really, really popular in pro. Mm-hmm. Mostly in pro, people play lethality. On hit, it's obviously still mixed in there, but what's your guys' take on this kind of adjustment, as they're calling it, to Varus?
Well, they're also trying to make him less of a lane bully
mm-hmm.
and take a little bit away from pro play. So I'm all on board for that direction of changes. We'll see how it plays out, because it's pretty complicated changes with the changes for attack speed and reducing. I think it's like all of these sound like such good ideas, where they're like, oh yeah, the on hit version had this problem where you were actually running into attack speed cap and then you weren't getting value later. And so they're making, adjustments to the pretty heavy adjustments to the passive. And they're changing the lockout for empowering your Q, and all these things like sound so good. Plus they have the goal of reducing the pro play presence, which people are already like really looking forward to shakeups in the meta and stuff. So I think these are quite positive changes. I'm very hopeful for these changes, but it might take a follow-up pass, as far as balancing and tuning goes for.
It's hard to say. I mean, there's so many numbers here. I think the biggest one to me is the base AD nerf. I know a lot of times, especially AD carries can be somewhat live or die by their base AD. So 3 is generally a pretty big nerf. I know champions like Twitch and Caitlyn will get like 2 base AD adjustments and kind of make them go from flavor of the month to unviable. So I don't know. 3 sounds like a lot for Varus. But there's a lot of other changes coming in. I personally am always more of a fan of the on-hit Varus than Poke, because like his damage is just unreal. I play a lot of like bruiser frontline champs, and nothing kills you like a Varus kills you. Like he just ults you and you're dead. So I don't know. I would still imagine he's going to be strong, but hard to really say.
At the very least, the 3 AD thing to me is like, I really like that, because that is one that directly hits the like lane bully pro play hail of blades. Like your level 1 hail of blades with 3 less attack damage on it is I like the direction of these changes. So hopefully their vision is realized, and whether or not it takes a follow-up patch or not to balance.
It'll be interesting because I was looking at the breakdown in pro. Like, so for top regions, 81% of Varus games have opportunity built, so obviously playing lethality. Only 14% of games have Blade of the Rune King, right? Which is like generally, you're on hit rush. So it is very, very heavily lethality. But also, I was kind of surprised with a pretty significant amount of games. So 69 games played in major regions, 37% win rate for Varus. So it's not doing well really at all or anywhere in the world. So it is really popular, but it is kind of interesting that
I think Poke Varus is it's one of those ultimate bait champions where it feels good to play. And I think people really like the fact that it's a much safer build. It's, you're always going to be able to do something as Poke Varus, whereas there are some on-hit games where you're just outrange and you're just having a bad time. But I don't know. I wouldn't even be surprised to see him start doing better if people are more forced into this on-hit style.
Right. What are you most looking forward to this patch? What is your favorite change? I'm going to start with mine and submit the Karthus nerfs. I hate it when there are turbo clears exactly like Karthus, and so many people have the turbo clear into spamming ultimate, playstyle. But Karthus also is really annoying, because if the Karthus has winning lanes, then he can just come in and invade you and starve you out and just push you out too. It's not even like he's one of those farmers over on his own side, he like comes into your side too, and this like absolutely pushes you out of areas of the map super early on in the game. So I was pretty happy to see what looked to me like some pretty dang good nerfs on Karthus. So I'm very happy to see those. The Skarner ones, I was very happy to see Skarner on this list too. Talia, I actually really like and I was fine with, but admittedly very strong as a flex pick, both mid and jungle here. So a couple of swings at that one too. But generally, I was like, wow, this patch, I like what I am seeing in this patch with a lot of the target nerfs. There were some that we were talking about it before the show, Meteos, where like, I actually Gragas popping up here was kind of strange. Like I hadn't seen him, in a while either. But I'm happy to take a big swipe at the Karthus brand Talia like top tier ones up there.
I think the one that stood out to me a lot is the Skarner changes, which it feels like they're just trying to kill top lane Skarner and force you to play jungle. Like these are really big mana changes on Skarner, which is actually really impactful. The Q is going from 30 mana to 50, plus it's getting some max health damage nerf. But they have just been hitting his mana so much. So in 14.7, his mana growth went to 45 from 60. Then in 14.8, it went to 40 from 45, and his mana regen growth went down. Then it got nerfed again, it got a slight increase in 14.9 on his mana regen. Then now they're doing this massive increase, almost like doubling the mana cost on the Q. So they obviously keep hitting his mana. Like at the very first, it was this W max top lane where you just spammed, and then they hit the mana, and everyone's like, okay, well now I'll just build a tier, and I'll still be fine to do that. This I think is actually going to probably kill it top lane, or at least make it so it's not a dominant laner anymore, because I think you're really going to struggle mana-wise if you're trying to do this top lane, whereas in jungle, you just don't really have mana problems. You get so much mana regen, obviously just kind of like existing in the jungle. So I'm
just happy about the hefty damage nerf. Like his HP scaling was just giga insane, and so bring that back in line.
Well, I think this isn't from his max. Like I don't know, this isn't his health, right? This is like the percent of their health when he throws the rock at you.
The official notes aren't out, so yeah,
it says Q2 max health damage.
It is the enemy health, I think.
Yeah, because I remember looking at that, and like Sneaky and Double if we're both saying like complaining about Skarner's rock doing way too much damage, and it does hit really hard. I don't know if we're gonna see him in jungle, because
he's 0 games played in jungle and pro.
Yeah, and I've played him jungle.
Top regions.
Everyone's telling me he's just a super OP champion, but when I play him, I don't really feel it. I feel like his clear is slow. And another big part of Skarner too is like, it's kind of funny because it feels like how Skarner has landed and what's making him good wasn't really what he was designed for, right? It's like his E, you think about him having these really interesting gank paths, but that's not even like the best way to use it. The best way to use it is you just get on top of somebody in E and just drag them way farther than it feels like you should be able to, or like ulti into E, into your turret, that kind of stuff. And so I don't see why I would want to play him jungle anymore with these changes. I think it's just going to make him worse top. I would still expect him to be played up there just because like I really don't see jungle Skarner like doing anything useful. So
I think he's just going to be gone from pro. I mean,
yeah,
he's getting played in smaller regions in jungle, so maybe he'll be continue to play somewhere. But like, as long as Games Legends is right, which it almost always is, 0 games played in major regions in jungle, 88 in top, has a 62.5% win rate. It's obviously super OP in top, but like 20 mana per Q, that is so much for an ability that you are spamming.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely going to be big. I just think that like if you pick him now into like Talia, Karthus, Zyra, whatever, you are just getting outpaced so unbelievably hard. You don't even have time to go for ganks because you're just like your clear is actually slow on him.
I think what's going to happen is that they're going to do this patch. They're going to see if it actually is deleted from top lane, which is my impression of what they're trying to do by hitting the mana this hard. And then later they're going to like buff his damage to monsters or something like that to try to get him back in. Because otherwise I think Skarner is just going to be gone from the game just like he was before the rework. And, that's just kind of my read on it, because I don't really feel like, I don't know. I don't really know anyone who's like super into the Skarner rework other than saying like Skarner's OP and I want to win, So I do think they're going to be worried about it just kind of like falling off the map like the old Skarner was and going back to like no play rate and stuff. So my guess is they're trying to delete it from top lane and then they're going to rebuff it for jungle.
I think the most frustrating part about the champion is the like weird hitboxes and weird feeling that it just feels like, he can E you while he's facing you and then and push you back anyways. Yeah. And like the weird stuff with his ultimate too, like comes out really fast, like faster than the indicator looks, and like moves you around, and like the weird way it works with walls and stuff. And so I'm like, is there some way to nerf him that makes it feel more real, like reasonable to play against rather than just numbers like this?
I mean, his W range too. Like, why is it so far? It doesn't make any sense. Why it should be that
giant fart cloud that everyone can smell a mile away.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. The feel of the champion is weird.
Yeah,
especially playing against him. It's just like, why is he doing these things to me? It doesn't make sense.
It's like what clunky would be but you have to play against it, and so you're just like it's awkward.
Especially when the WMAX stuff was in top lane. I remember one of the first games I played against it, I was like, you know what? I bet Quinn would pound this champion. And then I played against the WMAX Comet Skarner, and you go in and you're auto attacking this person from your max range, and he's just Wing you and winning every trade as you're shooting him. And it's like, excuse me? It's
some gameplay for sure.
It was definitely a weird one. That is pretty dead, but it'll be interesting. I mean, maybe there's some things they can do to kind of like reshape how it is, but then you're talking about basically doing like a mini rework on a champion that just got reworked, right? Like it's probably just gonna be numbers changes.
Yeah, it feels weird if it's heading in a direction where he gets pushed back into being extremely low play rate, like basically where old Skarner was. If he gets completely shunned out, so I don't know. Some kind of smoothing, some way to smooth it while also taking down the power a bit, I think is be a good look.
MF changes are also kind of interesting. I know people are always, I don't know, I feel like MF is kind of polarizing, but it's really is in the game is one of the easy champs that people can pick up and play. I know as far as its like mastery curve, which is generally the amount that your win rate increases with the amount of games that you play. So it has one of the flattest mastery curves in the game, I know, which generally means that like, putting in 10 games of MF is the same as someone who's put in 500 games of MF, right? And so it is getting some pretty decent buffs. It is getting 3 base AD. The lockout on like the move speed with your W has gone down. You're getting a lot more move speed as well, I believe, when it's all capped out. So it does seem to be like it's going to be pretty strong. So even the minimum move speed for your W is going from 25 up to 50 at max rank. And then the total possible is going up to 100 bonus move speed at max rank. So some decent buffs for MF, and I feel like MF can fit in pro sometimes, but it's generally like so combo based. It feels like you need so much setup that it only really fits in when other champions that are really good at setting up become meta.
I'm actually a fan of MF as far as the big moments that you can get with a champion with the ultimates, and I do like champions, especially AD carries, that require and really benefit from your team drafting around you and setting up for you and stuff. I feel like that is like a very fulfilling AD carry role for the AD carry rather than the ones that are super independent. And base stat buffs are always very much more skewed towards higher ranked play and towards pro play. The scaling stat buffs are the ones that are much more towards lower level play. So it'll be interesting to see if this does bring her into pro play, because I actually think that it will. One of my pet peeves is all the AD carries getting insane move speed buffs, though. And so I was like happy to see the other ones, but then it kind of annoyed me to see more crazy move speed for an AD carry
and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
she builds no moves most games anyway, so she's just going to be like way too fast.
I don't know. Yeah, it's the move speed mobility creep for AD carries has been very generous, I feel like. So we'll see. This one does seem like a lot, and like you're saying, she very often rushed Ghostblade as well. It is cool when champs have like unique identities, and if Miss Fortune's identity is that she can rotate between lanes really quickly and between objectives. We actually saw this for a small time during the double Rift Herald meta, when first Rift Herald was really impactful because it's so early and gets you so much, where MF lanes, because she has a strong lane and she has this out of combat move speed, had an advantage where like you could win lane bottom and then you would roam really fast up to first Rift-Tailed and then roam really fast, back down. That's kind of cool to me theoretically.
It's only 5 move speed at its maximum that's changing, so it's not too big.
Yeah.
But move speed in general, I know you're saying is really high.
But yeah, it's just this like theme in general to me is definitely one that I had my eye on for a while with like mobility creep in general, but especially with AD carries and kind of the class of the game that's supposed to build glass cannon.
It's like, have you guys seen the symbiotic souls or whatever that build? With Quinn mid.
Dude. That's what the boots are called.
I think it's symbiotic souls or symbiotic something.
Something like that. Yeah, the Moby boot.
Yeah, the void boots that give you the Baroning powered recall. Yeah,
the void boots Quinn. Where I played against that and it was like really frustrating.
Yeah, I try to not think about that
because it was just like the Quinn just runs at you, trades the health bar, like you win the trade, but like
and then you hear
and then just right back in a second. It gets really frustrating to the point where it was like it feels like the correct thing is just to not trade with Quinn, otherwise Quinn's gonna take a big trade, then come back, and then you're kind of screwed, because you can't actually get back from base anywhere close to as fast. But then you have to give up mid prio, and then the Quinn's just killing your side lanes, and it's like, oh my gosh, that is pretty crazy. So that when I think of move speed, crazy move speed stuff, I'm definitely thinking about that build.
Yeah.
It is pretty strong. Any other patch stuff you guys want to touch on? We got our meeting starting in 5 minutes.
Okay, and then
I think most of these changes are not too significant and probably not going to shake up pro play a whole lot.
Yeah, most of them are smaller numbers changes.
This
was nearly a 2-hour episode, 110 minutes, one of our longest ones. Just kind of turned into that. It was a fun one. Thank you, Kia, again for sponsoring us. We appreciate it. And that'll wrap it up for this episode of The Dive, driven by Kia. Remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode of The Dive. You can also check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any podcast platform. Make sure you send us your questions on Twitter. Use the hashtag #TheDiveLOL. Week 3 starts Thursday. It's Thursday and Friday, not Saturday and Sunday. It starts this Thursday, June 27th, 1 p.m. Pacific. Be sure to tune in. Thanks for watching.